myself Govind Neglur. I welcome you all for the video lecture series on the course named Problem Solving and Programming in C. In this session, we will see modular programming using functions. So without waiting further, let's get started. We will first see what are functions in C. Functions in C provide the facility to write modular programs. Now you might be asking, what is a module or what is a modular program? Large programs can be divided into smaller, easy to understand blocks, and such smaller, easy to understand blocks are referred to as modules. So what is a modular programming? A programming approach wherein the programmer uses modules in the program is referred to as modular programming. To include the modular programming approach in C, we heavily use functions. Hence, the usage of modules in a programming language is called as modular programming. Every function we create in C can be thought of as a module. Have we ever created a function? The answer is yes. The first function that we have always created is main. Hence, main is a function. Functions in C can be divided into two types. The first type of function is what we refer to it as a built-in function, and the second type of function is referred to as user-defined functions. Coming to built-in functions, these type of functions are already available for the programmer. Programmer can directly use these functions in his or her programs. Few of the examples for built-in functions are the functions to compute square root, finding power of a number, finding sine of an angle, cosine of an angle. When it comes to string handling functions, we can use strcpy to copy a string, strlen to find the length of the string, strcat for concatenation of two strings, and strcmp for comparing two strings. It is important to note at this point that C provides a rich set of built-in functions which can be used directly in the program. Hence, the complexity of the programs can easily be reduced. Various built-in functions on string operations were discussed in the previous video sessions. If you are interested, you can have a look into those video sessions. Moving further, built-in functions are available globally and are declared in header files. So if you had observed, when we handled string built-in functions, we always included one header file called string.h. At that time, I had told you that to use these string built-in functions, the header file named string.h must be included because the declaration of these string handling functions are available in string.h. Similarly, we have noted that to use printf and scanf statements, we must include stdio.h. stdio.h refers to standard input output. So the declaration of printf and scanf are available in stdio.h. Hence, we say that built-in functions are available globally, and any programmer who is interested to use these functions can directly use them by declaring or using them in their respective header files. These are usually called as library functions. Hence, stdio.h, string.h, math.h, they are all considered as library functions. To be able to use those built-in functions, we use hash include statement to call these functions in the programs. This is about built-in functions. Moving on to user-defined functions. These type of functions are defined by the programmer during the program creation. One of the best example of a user-defined function is main because it is defined by the programmer itself. So the question of why main is a user-defined function is because it is created by the programmer every time a new program is created. So without the knowledge of functions or modular programming in using functions, we have directly or indirectly created a user-defined function. User-defined functions are available locally and are usually not declared in header file. Hence, we have not written any header file to create main. So these are some of the differences between built-in functions and user-defined functions. So to summarize the difference, built-in functions are available globally, whereas user-defined functions are available locally. Built-in functions are usually declared in header files, and user-defined functions are usually not declared in header files. Having seen the types of functions in C, next obvious question comes is when to use functions. The answer for this is bit tricky, so let us try to understand it bit by bit. Whenever we are given with a problem definition, we have to try to identify the subproblems. and create those subproblems as modules or functions. What do you mean by this? Let us understand this with the help of an example. We have already seen an example of matrix addition program when we studied two-dimensional arrays. You can have a look into that video in the link that will be provided in the top right corner of the screen. Now that problem definition of matrix addition program required us to write the C codes for the following subproblems: reading a matrix, displaying the matrix, and addition of two matrices. In fact, the third point should have become the second point. So all these subproblems are sequential. So to perform matrix addition, we need to first read the matrix, then we need to add the two matrices and display the added result as the output. Seemingly simple problem definition of matrix addition can be rethought of as three sub-problems, and all these three problems of reading a matrix, addition of two matrices, and displaying the matrix can be written as separate functions. So all these can be created as separate user-defined functions. I hope you understood when to use functions. Having seen when to use functions, we will briefly discuss some of the advantage of using functions. When we use functions in our programs, the code becomes compact and the code for repetitive tasks can be written only once. Use of functions helps in debugging the programs easily. It also reduces the length of the code because repetitive tasks can be written as only one function, and whenever we require to use that function in the function call, we only call that particular function. By doing this, we reduce the length of the code. So these are few of the advantages of using functions. These are not the only advantages of using functions. There are a lot of advantages of using functions, but I am restricting myself only to these four advantages. Moving ahead, guidelines for using functions in C programs. Given a problem definition, you can remember these guidelines, and by following these guidelines, you can easily make use of functions in C programs. Let us see what are those guidelines. First, we need to identify the need for using functions. So whenever a problem is given, if you think that the problem is very trivial, say for example you are asked to display some message onto the screen, say hello world, or simply add two numbers from the screen, then you need not use functions. But however, if you are given with a big problem definition, then you can try identifying the need for using functions. Having found the need for using functions, we write the function prototype for all the identified functions. What do you mean by function prototype will be discussed in the further slides. Having written the function prototype for all the identified functions, we next write the main function and call the required functions inside main. After completing main, we create these functions which were identified in step 1. We will now take an example to understand these guidelines properly. The program that is shown in the left hand side of the screen is the program which finds maximum of two numbers. Here a and b are 10 and 20, and this program outputs always the maximum value. So for this, if else is used. Going through the guidelines that was seen in the previous slide, I need to identify the need for using functions. So I can logically say that this module of finding greatest of two numbers, that is using if else, can be thought of as a function. Now I have done with the first step, so I'll go to the second step. Second step was writing the function prototype. Let us see what is the function prototype. So I will rewrite this program to make use of functions in C. First, I will have to write the function prototype. What do you mean by function prototype? It looks like this. You first define the name of the function. Remember, since you are writing the function, you have to specify a unique name. The rules for specifying the name of the function is very similar to the rules for identifying or defining variables. Now I have named this function as max of 2, and I will now write the skeleton of this program. So this means that this user defined function called max of 2 takes two arguments and returns the maximum of those two arguments. So here it takes 10 and 20 as the input and returns the maximum of 10 and 20. This is what we refer to it as function prototype. Code for main looks like this. Entire block of this code is just replaced with this statement. This is actually referred to as function call. And now in this point I have ended the main. So according to the next guideline, I should now define the user defined function called max of 2. This is called as body of the user defined function, wherein I specify the skeleton of this user defined function and write a pair of flower brackets. This is referred to as a body, and write this statement which was here inside this user defined function. I am now treating this entire module and writing it as a function over here. So what is the advantage of this? With this I can also find the maximum of another set of numbers. If the concept of functions were not used, I need to again replicate this code after the printf here. The advantage of using function was it avoids duplication of code. Having seen the guidelines for using functions in C program, let us see the components of function. Functions in C can be classified as few components like this. The first component is its return type. What is the return type? The return type depicts the data type of the value the function returns when it is invoked. Possible return types can be void, int, float, char, double, and so on. Whatever the data type which are valid in C, so what are the various data types available in C? Primary data type, derived data type, and user defined data types. So all of them can be the possible return types for the function. Second component is the arguments. What is an argument? These are the variables that are passed to the function during its creation. The arguments can be categorized as a number. We call it as number of arguments, and it can vary from 0 to n. In the problem that was discussed previously, we had two arguments. The third component is its return value. If a function is having a return type other than void, then it must return a value that matches with the data type of return type. How can we achieve this? This is achieved using the return statement. To summarize, components of C function are its return type, arguments, and its return value. All of these terminologies can be summarized over here. In fact, there are other terminologies also associated with functions which are very important, and it is important to remember these terminologies and use them properly. So this slide shows such terminologies. The first terminology that we saw was function prototype. What is a function prototype? The one that is showed with the rectangular box is referred to as a function prototype. In fact, the meaning of prototype is very similar to a skeleton code. So here in this prototype, we just specify what is the overall skeleton of that function. So what does this prototype means? It means that the function called max of 2 takes two arguments whose data type is of type int and also returns an integer value. You can also similarly identify the prototype for main. It takes no arguments and returns an integer. Next we have what we call it as function call. So inside main we are actually specifying this max of 2 with the actual value. This is what we refer to it as a function call. The next terminology we refer to it as a function body or function definition. What do you mean by function body? The function which is specified with a pair of flower brackets is referred to it as function body. Now what is the function body for main? This entire code is the function body for main, because main is also a function. The next terminology we have is return type. This function called max of 2 returns an value of type integer. Hence this int is referred to as return type. Next we have something called as actual parameters or arguments. When this function is called, we pass two values 10 and 20, and this we refer to it as formal parameters. As the name themselves imply, the values a and b are the actual values, hence they are referred to it as actual parameters, and those parameters are made available in this function body, and that is referred to it as formal parameter. The next terminology that we have is its return value. So how do I specify a return value? Using a keyword called return. So if a is indeed greater than b, the value a is returned to main. So where does it return? So the value a gets returned to max if a is indeed greater than b. Otherwise the value of b is returned to main. So after the execution of this statement, the max variable will be stored with whichever is greater among these two. and that is printed over here. So this is what we refer to it as return value. It is to be noted that always return values are specified using keyword called return. Next we have number of arguments. Since there are two values that we are passing in this function call, hence the number of arguments for this function is 2. What is the number of arguments for main? Yes, you might have guessed correctly. There are no arguments for this main, hence it has 0 arguments. These are few of the terminologies. Now we'll try to distinguish between two types of variables called local variables versus global variables. When we try to find the differences between a user defined function or a built-in function, we saw that built-in function is available globally and user defined functions are available locally. With respect to the same concept, we can also differentiate between local and global variables. What are those? A local variable is declared inside a function and global variable is declared outside a function. The values of the local variables cannot be accessed outside the function in which they are declared. The values of the global variable can be accessed anywhere in the program. Values of the local variables are killed when the function returns to calling function. The values of these global variables will be active throughout the program execution. So all the code that we saw in the previous sessions or in this session, we have only used local variables. Why? Because all these variables a, b, max, and also here a, b, they are all created inside a function. We have never written any code wherein I have defined or initialized or declared a variable outside any function. Hence, we have only seen the local variables. Having seen or having studied these aspects of functions in C, let us take up few programs on functions. I'll first summarize it and then I will switch over to Fedora to show the code for these programs. We'll try to write a C program to find maximum of two integer numbers. In fact, this was already dealt in the previous slides. I will just go through this program quickly. Second program we'll try to write is a program to find average of four integer numbers. We'll next write a C program to convert a character from lowercase to uppercase and vice versa. Next we'll write a C program to sort a list of numbers in ascending order. After that we'll write a C program to add two matrices of order m cross n. Later we'll try to write a C program to swap two numbers. I will now switch over to Fedora and demonstrate these programs. As you can see, I am now in Fedora operating system. I have created a directory called function. I'll be writing all the programs related to functions in this directory. I have also typed the code to find the maximum of two integer numbers using functions. As was seen previously, this is what we refer to it as a function prototype. This is what we call it as a function call. This is the function body. So in general, function body is always written with a pair of flower brackets. A pair of flower brackets is also called as a scope. Similarly, main is also user defined function. So the body of the mains is all the code that is written inside a pair of flower brackets for main. We have also seen previously the difference between local variable and a global variable. Now the variable a, b and max are local only to this function called main. However, also note that these two same variables a and b which were specified in main also appear in max of 2 function. Now does that mean that both a and b which is mentioned in main same as a and b which is mentioned in max of 2? The answer is no, because a and b is local to this function. When this function returns to main, a and b gets killed. Hence, even though the name appears same, but technically both these pair of variables which are available in main as well as max of 2, they are not one and the same. They are totally different. I will now compile this program. I will run this. You can see now the program prints maximum as 20. So how it actually works? The value 10 and 20 gets passed as argument to this function. So in this max of 2 function, the local variable a will be assigned with value 10 and local variable b will be assigned with value 20, and it compares whether 10 is greater than 20, which is false. It returns b as the value, so b is 20, so that is returned. This gets returned and copied to max. So when the function returns to main, this is called as return of function. When this max of 2 returns to main, it would copy the value of 20 to max. Now what if I change this? Instead of making a as 10, b as 20, I'll make a as 20 and b as 10. In this case, what will happen? Now a contains 20, b contains 10. That 20 and 10 gets copied to the local variables a and b of max of 2. So now a is 20, b is 10. So 20 greater than 10 is true. This time the value a, which is 20, gets returned to max. So it prints max as 20. Let us quickly compile this and run this code. You can now see again it prints maximum value as 20. I will now show you the program to find the average of 4 integer numbers. I have already typed this program and have named it as average.c. You can now observe the function prototype. Because we are interested in finding the average of 4 integer numbers. So all these 4 integer numbers are passed as arguments to this function. So this function called average, which is a user defined name, takes 4 integer numbers as arguments, and we all know that average value usually will be of type real. Hence I am returning the return type, or I am specifying the return type as float. These are the 4 numbers, and I will store the returned average as a variable called avg. I am going to call this function here. So I'll write avg equal to average a comma b comma c comma d, then print the average, and this is the end of main. This is what is we call it as function body. You can now notice from the previous program I have named the local variables differently. So it need not be the case that these 4 variables should be of the same name, because both are not connected at all. ABCD is a local variable in main, so even if you create ABCD here, it becomes local to this function. So to prove this fact, I have renamed it as WXYZ. Whatever is the value of A, that gets copied to W. Same thing happens with X, Y and Z respectively. Then I compute the average with this formula. Note that I have made 4 as, I have upcasted it to real number because I want to return the result as a float. So since it should not become a integer arithmetic, so one of the either numerator or denominator must be a float. So I have used this notation 4.0, which is a mixed mode arithmetic, and 4.0 is a floating point variable. So it returns the result, and that result is stored here. Then I can go ahead with printing the value average. Let me compile this code. You can now see it prints the average of 4 numbers properly. Now what if I want to print the value of average before the function call? What is your guess? What I am trying to do here is I am trying to print the value of average before this function call. What does that mean? It means the value average gets stored only when the function is called. Now I have not called this function, but still I am trying to print the value of average. Let's see what happens. As you can notice, the first output is printed as 0 and the second output is proper. The reason is because the value of average gets stored only when the function called average returns to main. Before the function returns to main, whatever the value that is available in this average is invalid. Hence it is not a good idea to print the returned values before the function call. It is to be done after the function call. This is a very important observation. Do keep this in mind whenever you are writing programs on functions. I will now show you a C program that uses functions to convert a character from lowercase to uppercase and vice versa. I have already typed the code and I have named it as conversion.c. This program definition requires us to convert one character or an alphabet from lowercase to uppercase or vice versa. To do this, I am achieving this with the help of a user-defined function called convert. Since we are converting the case of one alphabet and the data type of alphabet is char, so it takes only one argument whose data type is of char, and this function converts that alphabet from lowercase to uppercase or vice versa and returns it to the main. Hence, the return type of this function is again char data type. Hence, the function prototype of this function looks like this: char convert in the parenthesis list or argument list one argument whose data type is of char. Coming to the main function, for simplicity I am reading the value of variable ch as a, and the converted result I am planning to store it in result. So this is the function call of that function, and after that I am printing it here. Coming to the function body, we know that from the ASCII chart of the characters, I am checking whether this character lies between small letter A to Z. If so, I am subtracting 32 from it. Why 32? You can just refer the ASCII chart, you will come to know the reason. Otherwise, if the character is between capital A to capital Z, I add 32 offset to it to change it to small case letters. Let me compile it now. When I run it, you notice that the character was ch was small case a, now it has been converted to uppercase. I will now change this alphabet a from a to say capital T. Now the output should be small t. You can observe the output is small t. This program is a bit robust because if you give the input other than alphabet, it will not modify that alphabet. Suppose I change this character from alphabet to a number or a symbol. Let's see what happens. You can see it has not modified it all because you cannot convert plus from lowercase to uppercase or vice versa. I will now demonstrate the fourth program, which is sorting a list of numbers using in ascending order. For this purpose, I will use bubble sort to sort a list of numbers. This is a program that sorts a list of numbers using bubble sorting technique. This has been already discussed in the previous video sessions on searching and sorting using arrays. You can have a look into them. Here, the point of focus is not on the working of bubble sort, but how to implement this bubble sort using functions. So first I will identify the need for using functions. I can treat this logic to perform bubble sort as one module, and I'll go ahead with implementing this module as a function. So I'll have to remove this code and put it as a function. For this, I will use a user defined function called sort. Here, once the elements are sorted, I am not returning anything to the main. So my return type for this function will be void. I'll name it as void sort. Since I am interested in sorting this array, the first argument for this user defined function will be an array. This is specified in function prototype like this. A pair of square brackets indicates that the first argument or the argument that I am going to pass is of derived data type called array, and the data type of that array is int. I am also interested in passing the value of n. So this, since it's an integer, so I'll pass it like this. So you can now notice this function takes two arguments. The first argument is of type array and the second argument is of type integer, which is a normal variable. I will have to call this function over here sort. So I want to sort the array element a and I want to pass the value n. After main, I'm going to specify the body of the sort int a, int n. Now I will have to copy paste all these values, or this entire code should become the function body. So I'm going to paste it over here and delete this one by one. And after this, you notice that now the values I, j, or the variables I and j and temp, they have become local variables. Hence, they have to be defined locally over here. So I'm going to define them locally. I equal to 0, j equal to 0, and temp. Since I, j and temp are local here and are not being used in main, so I don't need I and j over here. So I simply delete them. I, j and temp are deleted now. So according to main, it requires only two variables a and n. In fact, I is required because of the way you are reading the array elements and printing them. So I don't require j and temp. Next, I, j and temp are local variables for this. And then after this logic that sorts the array elements, since I have specified void, I am not writing any return statement in this function. In all the previous programs that were demonstrated on functions, I always wrote return. Here, since after sorting the array elements, all the sorted elements are available in the array itself, there is no need to return anything to main. This is specified here as a void keyword. Hence, I don't require return statement for this function. So it is to be remembered that whenever a function has void as a return type, return statement need not be used. So let me compile this program now. Compilation is successful. I will enter some 5 elements. I'll enter in arbitrary order. You can notice after I enter all the 5 elements, the array got sorted using the function and I am printing the sorted array in main. This is a program that sorts a list of numbers using functions by making use of bubble sorting technique. I will now demonstrate the next program, add two matrices of order m cross n. In fact, this program has already been discussed in the video session on two-dimensional arrays. I have given it as a suggested activity. I have already typed the code for this program. Let me open it. I have named it as mat_add.c. This is a program for matrix addition, but however, this program doesn't use functions. So I will be modifying this same program to make use of functions. As we noted earlier, the guidelines for using functions, the first guideline was we need to identify the need for using functions. How do we identify the need for using functions? We specify the sub problems that can be done in this program. So if you notice in this program, the programs or the problems to read elements into the matrix, addition of two matrices, as well as displaying of matrices can be thought of as sub problems. So these are the code to read two matrices. This is the code to perform addition of a matrix, and this is a code to display the content of the resultant matrix. So all these three activities or sub problems can be implemented as a function. So I'm going to create three functions now. I'm going to name it as read underscore matrix, void read underscore matrix. You might notice why I have written void for read matrix. That is because this function will only read the matrix. It will not do any other task, simply reads the matrix into a two-dimensional array. So this array I am going to pass it as argument. So since it's a two-dimensional array, I need to specify two subscripts. Also, to read array, we require the order of the matrix. So that order of the matrix m cross n is specified as two separate integer arguments. Now I will write the function name for matrix addition. So I'll write add underscore matrix. To add two matrices, I required the matrix A and B as well as the resultant matrix C. So I required minimum three two-dimensional arrays as arguments. And after that, I also need the order of the matrix. So I take two more variables for this. So you can now notice add underscore matrix function has 5 arguments, out of which first 3 arguments are of two-dimensional array and remaining 2 are normal variables which depict the order of the matrix M and N. Similarly, I will also write a function called display underscore matrix. So to display a matrix, we require a matrix or two-dimensional array, which is the first argument. Second and third arguments are for order of the matrix M cross N. So this is the syntax to specify function prototype for two-dimensional arrays. Why there are two subscripts? Because it's of 2 dimensions. So each dimension or each pair of subscript represents a dimension. Now I just need to replace this code, replace these two code with two separate function calls for read underscore matrix. So this is one more point where we can see the applications of functions where the number of lines of code or can be reduced. Even we can reduce the duplication of the code, because if you compare this code which reads matrix A with this code which reads matrix B, the only difference here is in scanf I have written A here and in second scanf I have written B here. So almost 3 lines of the code has been simply duplicated among these two modules. With the use of function, if I call this read matrix twice, then the number of lines of code which was duplicate can easily be reduced. So this was already discussed as a application in function and we are seeing it over here. So after reading the order, I'm going to call this function read underscore matrix once for reading the array A and passing M and N, and I'm going to call this function again, this time by passing M, B as well as order M and N. You might be asking why the order of matrix A and B are same, because that's how the definition of matrix addition goes. Next, I will go after main and then define the function body for this particular function. Read underscore matrix int A. So the maximum size of A was elements 10 and 10. I'm going to name it as int m comma int n, and these are local variables. And also before calling this function, let me keep this printf over here, paste it over here, and after the second function call, I'm going to cut and paste this printf over here. So now I'm going to copy this code and paste it over here, copy, paste it over here, and also note that reading a matrix requires ij, so I'm going to define them as local variables I equal to 0, j equal to 0. M and N are already defined over here, so this looks good. Since it doesn't return anything, this is my complete code. So this piece of code simply reads a matrix which is passed as a parameter argument, and this can be called for any matrix and it will easily enter all the elements into this matrix. Hence, these 6 lines of code can now be easily deleted. So I'm going to delete those 6 lines of code. The next code is to find the addition of two matrices and store it in a resulting matrix C. So again I'm going to invoke this function. The name of the function was add underscore matrix. So I'm going to go over here, call add underscore matrix. I need to pass all 3 matrices A, B, C followed by their orders M and N. Come back over here, void add underscore matrix int A of 10, int B 10, int C 10, int M, int N. Because it was having 5 arguments, so I have to define the all 5 arguments here. Next, I need to copy paste this code and paste it over here. When I do this, I again notice that the variables I and j become local. So I need to write I equal to 0, j equal to 0 over here. This is the code to add two matrices, which I have now written it as a function. So now I can go ahead with deleting these 3 lines of code. So now what I am left with is, in main, I have called read matrix twice, one for A, one for B, and also called add matrix to find the addition of two matrices and store the result in the matrix C. The last part is simply printing the result in matrix C. So after this printf, I'm going to call display underscore matrix. Which matrix I want to display? The matrix C, and its order is m cross n. So I just go downwards and define or specify the function body for the function display matrix. Int c, int m, int n. Now I'm going to copy this code, entire code, to print the matrix. Copy, paste it over here. Now again notice that I and j are local variables now. So I'll define I equal to 0, j equal to 0. That's it. I will now remove these lines of code from main. Now you can see the actual content or the number of lines in main has been greatly reduced by a large amount, because for each submodules, that is reading a matrix, performing addition of two matrices and displaying the resultant matrix, all those sub problems I have written a function for each of them. Hence the number of lines of code in main has been greatly reduced. This also increases the readability of the code. And also, if I find some problem with reading a matrix, I know that the error will be in the function body of this function. So I can go there and then debug the program. Hence you can increase the debugging speed if you use functions. Let me now compile this code and see if there are any compiler errors. As you can see here, I have got some compiler error. The reason for this error is, whenever you are specifying a two-dimensional array as function prototype inside the argument, then syntactically you must specify the size of both the dimensions. So here I will specify the size of all the arguments which specify matrices. So everywhere wherever I used a pair of subscript operators, I'll specify the maximum size of such operator. Now I'll go ahead and compile this program. You can now see the error has been removed and the program is now typed completely. I'll now go ahead with execution of this program. I'll clear the screen, /a.out. I'll enter the matrix order as 3, 2 and 3. I'll enter 6 elements. I'll enter 6 more elements of matrix B. You can see here it has now returned me the added result and displayed the content of matrix C. The next problem is, write a C program to swap two numbers using functions. So I'm going to create a program called swap.c. What do you mean by swap? Exchanging the two elements of variables or exchanging the contents of two variables is called as swap. So this is easily achieved with this. So I have, say, a number a as 10, b as 20. After some operation, I need to copy the value of 20 to A and 10 to B. We have already seen how to perform this when we discussed bubble sort, wherein we exchange the elements of successive indices. To achieve swap, we need to write temp equal to A equal to B, B equal to temp. So before swap, I'm going to print the values of the A and B. After swap, I'm going to print the values of A and B again. This is my program. This program doesn't use functions. First, let us see whether this works or not. I'll compile this program, run it. You can see here, before the swap operation, which was of 3 lines, temp equal to A equal to B and B equal to temp, the value of A and B was 10 and 20. After the swap, A has become 20 and B has become 10. This I will try to achieve it using a function. So what I will do, I will use a user defined function called swap underscore num. I'm interested in swapping two numbers, so I'll take arguments. After the swap, there is nothing to return to main, hence it becomes void. I will now create this function. After main, void swap underscore num s, int a, int b, int temp equal to 0. This code I'm going to entirely copy paste over here. Then close this, and after this I'm going to delete these statements, and rather instead I'll call the function swap underscore nums, pass a and b. This is my code to swap two numbers. I just called a user defined function called swap underscore nums and specify the body of that function here. Let us compile and see the output of this. What you interestingly notice here is, even though we have written the code to swap numbers inside a user defined function, but really it is not swapping the numbers a and b. What is the problem with this? Let us try to understand this problem with the help of a concept. I will now show you the reason behind why the program did not swap the two numbers. In this slide, the program that is shown in the left hand side is the one that did not swap the numbers. In fact, I have almost written the same code, except that the name of the function in the demonstration was swap underscore nums. Here I have only modified it as swap. Rest of the code remains same. We will use memory diagram to understand why the program failed to swap the numbers, while the code that did not use functions worked correctly. The memory diagrams were introduced in my previous video sessions on pointers. If you want to know about memory diagrams and their uses, you can have a look into the video session on pointers. Here, the right hand side of the slide shows the memory diagram. We have already seen that when a program executes, it gets copied into the RAM part of the memory, and from here it gets executed one line at a time by the runtime environment. Various statements of the C program are stored in separate logical blocks called as segments. There are totally 6 segments that gets allocated for every C program. These segments are text segment, initialized data segment, uninitialized data segment, stack segment, heap segment, and the segment meant to be used for command line arguments. The details of these segments are beyond the scope of the discussion. All the functions that we create in C are allocated in stack segment. The rectangular boxes shown in the right hand side of this slide are the logical representation of each function in a stack segment. Since the program has two functions, two boxes are shown here. One for main, the one that is in the upper side is for main, and another one for swap function. The one that is shown in the bottom right corner of the screen is for swap function. We know that the program execution starts from main function always. Hence, main acts as an entry point of a C program. When the control of execution reaches the declaration and initialization statement for variables a, b, and temp in main, like this, these variables are created in the memory. This is shown as an animation over here. In this animation, the red arrow mark represents the control of execution. When the control of execution reaches the function call, the control switches the execution from main to swap function. Here I have assumed that the memory allocated for both the variables a and b are 500 and 600. So now when the control reaches the execution of swap, the switch over of control from main to the swap function occurs. This is shown like this. Note that the variables mentioned in the parameter list inside the function body are local variables, hence they are created inside the function swap. Currently, there are two sets of variables a and b, one set in main, another set in swap, which are active in both functions and they also have the same values in them. Note that when the function swap was called inside main, the value of the variables a and b, which are local to main, was in fact copied to the variables which are mentioned in the function body of swap and are local variables in it. What do you mean by that? You can see here the value of a inside main is 10 and the value of b inside main is 20. The same values have been copied to the local variables of swap called a and b, and both values are 10 and 20. Now how can I say that both set of variables a and b are not same? They are not same because see the memory address. For a in main the memory address is 500 and for b in main the memory address is 600. However, there is different memory address that gets or that got allocated for a and b in swap. Hence both set of variables are different and the values of a and b from main when this function was copied to the values of a and b in swap, and same value is also made available in swap. This is what in C is referred to as parameter passing. There are two ways to pass parameters to a function. In the first way, which is referred to as call by value, in which the actual values of the variables specified in the function call are copied to the variables mentioned in the body of the call function. Here, the values of a and b, which were 10 and 20 in main, were in fact copied or actually copied to the values of a and b inside swap. So this way of passing parameter is referred to as call by value. In this case, the value of 10 and 20 from main are copied to the variables a and b of the function swap. Hence, this is an example of call by value. When the control reaches the user-defined function swap, the local variables a and b get the value of 10 and 20 from main by call by value method. Further, the control of execution executes all the statements of the user-defined function one by one sequentially. This is shown over here as an animation. So when the execution temp equal to a happens, the value of temp, which was 0 previously, now becomes 10. When a equal to b happens, whatever is the value of b, that gets replaced with the previous value of a. So now a becomes 20, b remains 20. After b equal to 10 gets executed, b becomes 10. Previous value of b was 20, it gets overwritten with 10. If we note that the state of the variables when the last statement, which is b equal to 10 of the user defined function swap executes, we see that the values of variables a and b in this function are already exchanged. So what you can see here is a and b are actually swapped. When the control, so now we have reached the end of the swap. So what happens? The control goes back to the next line of the main. So we say that the function returns to main. When the control returns back to main, what happens is that all the variables created from that function swap are destroyed or killed. That means the memory allocated in stack segment gets destroyed or freed when the function returns. This is depicted like this in the animation. So you can now notice in this animation that rectangular box has disappeared. So this means that the memory has been deallocated in the stack segment. Now what situation we have is the control is in main function and the variables inside main, which are a and b, are actually unaltered by swap. So if you note the values of a and b, 10 and 20, they are unchanged. Their values are not changed at all. Hence, when we print it in the next statement, which is shown over here, when we print it, obviously it prints the unswapped result because the actual swap happened in that user defined function swap, which is not known to main. Actually, this is what happened when we wrote the program of swap function. This is the reason we were unable to swap the numbers and print the swapped result, because the actual swap happened in this user defined function swap. In the function returned to main, the actual value of a and b in main were actually unaltered. Now, how to solve this problem? What is the meaning of that? I want to use the user defined function and still be able to swap it. How is it possible? You can use several cheap tricks to solve this problem. One cheap trick is to print the answer correctly, that is, put the printf inside the swap function. So after b equal to temp, you can just write the printf statement. So whatever the printf statement that is over here, you simply copy it here. It looks like the program works. In fact, when you execute this trick, the program works, but this is not the correct way of writing code, as it is wrong to put printf statements inside user defined functions other than main. Have you ever used any built-in functions that display successful message after the desired operation? No, right? Hence, we must always design our functions in such a way that we avoid to the maximum possible extent the use of printf statements inside the user defined functions. This is one of the better design choice the programmer can consider to use in his programs or while designing the programs. The another cheap trick would be to return two values a and b from function swap to main. So I can make, instead of void, return two values of both type int comma int. So I can write it like this and write return a comma b. However, unfortunately, in C, as stated earlier, we cannot return multiple values from a function. However, by using the concept of pointers and arrays, we can achieve this, but here we will not be using this trick over here. Hence, now we want to write the code in such a way that we should be able to write the code to swap the numbers inside the user defined function swap, but the actual swap should happen in the variables available in main. To achieve this, the only solution is to use the concept of pointers. This code is shown over here. Here, instead of passing the actual values, we pass the address of a and b as parameters to swap function. So if you now notice, I have changed the function prototype of the swap. Now the swap function takes two parameters or arguments, both are of type pointers, int star and int star, and when I am passing the parameters to swap or during function call, I am simply not passing a and b, rather I am passing the address of a as well as address of b. And also notice how I am receiving those variables here. A is received as again a pointer and address of b is received as again a pointer. So it is as good as writing say star x equal to ampersand a and star y equal to ampersand b. So this a and this b now set to point to original values of a and b in main. Let us see it with the animation. When the control reaches the first statement, a equal to 10, b equal to 20 and temp equal to 0. In fact, temp equal to 0 was not required here, so I can ignore that. Variables are created like this. In fact, this is same as the previous code animation. So when the function actually gets called, the control of execution switches over here and these three variables gets created. What is special about these variables a and b? In swap, they are actually pointer variables which points to the address of a and b in main. So that is depicted over here. So in fact, if I refer it as star a, it refers to the value 10. When I refer to it as star b, it refers to the actual value in 20 in main. So when I write temp equal to star a, what is the value that is pointed by 500 address? It is 10. So that 10 should get copied to temp. You can observe this is what happens. And when I write star a equal to star b, you might have noticed that star b represents the value of main variable b, which is available in main, which is 20. That will get copied to the star a. So what is the value available at 500? It is 20. So previous value was 10, that was overwritten with 20. So when I write star b equal to temp, what is the value available in temp? The value available at temp at this stage is 10. When the controller executes this statement, this 20 becomes 10. So you can observe this here. You can observe now b has become 10 and a already became 20. So when the control returns back, as observed previously, the memory in the stack segment for swap gets freed or deallocated, but what we have left with is the local variables a and b in main whose value has actually been swapped. This printf obviously prints the correct swapped output. So this is the actual solution. So a point to be noted here is, here we are passing as a parameter to the function the addresses. Hence, this way of passing parameter is referred to as call by reference. What is a reference? Reference is nothing but an address. So call by reference is a way of passing parameter to a function wherein the actual addresses of the variables are passed as parameters to the function. So you can observe addresses of a and b are passed as values or passed as parameters to the function swap. So this is referred to as call by value. So in C there are two ways to pass parameters. One is call by value and call by reference. I will now switch the control back to the Linux operating system and I will now modify the code to make it work for swapping of two numbers in main. So let us have a look into it quickly. I am now in Fedora operating system. You can see it over here. I will now open the code which did not swap the number using the function. What I will do is, as we noted in the slides, this uses call by value, hence it doesn't perform a swap. So I'll have to make this program modify to use call by reference. The way I can do is, I have to introduce these two parameters as pointers. So I'll just modify this code as shown in the slides, and here I will have to write the, instead of passing values I'll have to pass the reference which is address. So address operator is ampersand, so I'll write ampersand a and ampersand b. I will write star a as well as star b. Then I will modify this code temp equal to star a followed by star a equal to star b followed by star b equal to temp. I'll compile this code now. I'll run it. Now you can observe the in main the values of a and b have been exchanged. So this is the correct solution and it uses call by reference. Here I will summarize the two ways of passing parameters to a function which were discussed informally in the previous slides. Call by value. This is a way of passing parameters to a function in which the values of the variables are copied to the calling function as parameters. Values of the variables gets duplicated both in calling function and called function. What is the calling function? Swap was the function call and called function is the, you can treat of it as a function body of swap. Coming to call by reference, as seen earlier, this is a way of passing parameters to a function in which the address of the variables are passed as parameters to a function. In this case, only one copy of values are available both in calling function and called function. We have already seen both in detail in the previous slides as an animation. Now you might ask, in the previous programs that I discussed on arrays like sorting and matrix addition, how did the program output the correct answer? The simple answer is, whenever an array is passed as a parameter, it is always passed by reference. Hence, all operations that were performed on the array like sorting, matrix addition, etc., it all occurred on the variable, only one variable, which was defined in main itself. Hence, the program worked properly. So one of the most important point to remember at this point when using functions is that whether the programmer wishes or not, arrays are always passed by reference in C. So this is a very interesting observation and is very true in case of C programming language. Now I will demonstrate an additional program which is on string operations, and the program is, write a C program to concatenate two strings without using the string built-in function and use functions for doing this. In fact, we have seen two types of implementation on finding the string concatenation. The first one is using arrays to implement string concatenation. The second one was using pointers for string concatenation. So I have already opened or copied this code which was demonstrated in the previous video sessions on strings. I will modify now this program to make use of functions. So I need to copy or use this code inside a user defined function. So I'll now create a user defined function void string concat. Let me name it as string concat. So for string concatenation, I require two strings s1 and s2. Hence, the arguments are char arrays or one-dimensional character arrays. So s1 and s2, and the answer will be concatenated string will be available in s1 itself. So after this, after I read the both strings, I will simply call those strings over here s1 comma s2. So when the function returns, the string s1 should already contain the string which is already concatenated. Now you can observe here I have passed the strings s1 and s2 which are character arrays or arrays, and as we have seen previously just now, whenever you pass arrays are always passed by reference. It is not a choice by the programmer, it is mandated by the C. Whenever you pass arrays, it is always passed by reference. So when I receive them as arrays, indirectly I am receiving it as pointers only, because we have already seen in the video session on pointers, arrays and pointers are related and can be used interchangeably. So star as well as a pair of square bracket operator, which is an index operator, can be used interchangeably. So I'll now implement this string underscore concat char s1. Now since I know that arrays and pointers are related, I can simply write it as s1 char star s1 char star s2. So I can also modify the same thing over here. So instead of writing this as a pair of square brackets, I can easily replace a pair of square brackets with this. So please note that you can always replace a pair of square brackets with star. Of course, then you might ask whether both a pair of square brackets as well as star, can they be always used interchangeably? The answer is no. There is a small subtle difference, but however, this is a introductory course on C. We will not be talking about all the detailed differences or minute differences between both. Currently, we'll assume that you can replace a pair of square brackets with star easily. So I'll now go ahead with the implementation. Next, s1 string, I am now assigning a pointer to that string called s1 in string concat, and s2 string I am now assigning the pointer to s2. So I just need to modify this pointer. I will first copy paste this code, then I don't use the index notation because I have used pointers. I will just replace that with the pointer notation. So I will write star s1 not equal to backslash 0. That's it. It should be s1 plus plus. Then I don't require j here, as we had already seen this program of string concatenation using pointers. I just want star s2 not equal to backslash 0. I increment s1 plus plus and s2 plus plus. The only difference when we discussed string concatenation using pointers was I had used while loop there. Here I am demonstrating the same thing with respect to for loop. So if there is no initialization condition in the for loop of the body, then we just ignore that and simply specify an empty semicolon. Now I just need to write star s2 here, and this becomes star s1. Then I'll have to write star s1 equal to backslash 0. This is my end of the string concatenation. So you can see here this code actually modifies the original string available in the main. So only one copy is maintained. So even if you use the index notation over here, it is not going to change. You are indirectly going to pass an address only. So it uses call by reference always, whether you wish it or not. I should have deleted this. So after the modification, the final code looks like this. This is a function call for string concat, and in this function I have written the code for actual string concatenation. I used pointer notation, but even if I had used index notation, it would have remained one and the same, because always whenever you pass arrays as parameters to function in C, it is always passed by reference. So I'll now compile this code. I'll clear this screen. String concat.c/iout.stm you can now notice the string is been concatenated. I can also write Govind Negalur. It will still concatenate properly. So this code proves the fact that arrays are indeed passed by reference. In fact, for your information, all the built-in functions that we have seen till now, which take arrays as a parameter, like all the string handling functions that we saw, not only with respect to string, any function, built-in function which takes an array always uses pointers or call by reference. Hence, without your knowledge, you have already used functions in the previous sessions. Is this not very interesting topic? With this, we have come to the end of the session on modular programming using functions. Remember, the concept of functions is very important, because the use of functions lets the programmer divide the big program into smaller manageable chunks. This is one of the important design decisions a programmer has to take while designing the program. Hence, the concept of functions becomes very important. I hope you enjoyed this session. In the next session, I'll be discussing the concept of structures and unions. With this, I'm going to end this session. Have a nice day.